Okay, we're going to do Best of the West, Part 26, in art, music, movies, and whatnot. I'm talking about best historians. So the guy I'm going to talk about today is Rodney Stark. He lived from 1934 to 2022. He's a great historian. He started out as a sociologist, but then he had to research sort of the Middle Ages, and he came into it not as a Christian and thinking, oh, the Christian Middle Ages were the Dark Ages, just like the Enlightenment philosophers, Voltaire and Diderot, and then the historian Edward Gibbon had said. And then he started studying. He's like, holy crap, the Christians are the ones who did everything good. Okay, and I've read a whole bunch of books by him. I'll just show you a couple of them. This one right here is How the West Won. Okay, the neglected story of the triumph of modernity. I always rip the covers off them. Here's Bearing False Witness, about how all the stuff, almost everything negative said about the Catholic Church, the early Catholic Church, okay? Let's say before 1800 was actually not, actually before 1950 was not true. The Catholic Church since 1950 has been taken over by Antichrist, and it's gone down the tubes, Vatican II and all this evil backward stuff. Here's, the audio CD books, and I got a whole bunch more of them. I live in an apartment now. It's all chaos. My library is no longer as precisely organized as it was. When I got divorced, I threw out I don't know how many dumpsters, at least 7 of them full of all my books. It was sad. Anyways, Rodney Stark, he's a great historian. He's kind of ornery. And usually great men are kind of cantankerous and kind of ornery because they're always catching a lot of shit. Whenever you're a genius and you tell the truth, it's like all the conventional people hate you and give you shit. And you're just kind of like, shut up, you ignorant idiots, okay? So they kind of become like that. And when you read his books, he just takes all these dishonest historical lies and he just bats them aside. He crushes them. He's real smart. Okay, so let's see. How the West was won. Okay, and let me go to some quotes of his so you really get a sense of how he writes and talks. Okay, and he points out that the Middle Ages were a time of rapid scientific and technological progress in the West, and that's why the West was so far ahead of everybody through scholasticism, through the Renaissance, and then after that, and almost all the science and achievement came from devout Christian men. Okay, devout white Christian men. Okay, and the other countries, the so-called multicultural equal countries, are not allowed to do anything. In China, the rulers will kick your butt and steal your property from you, okay? And then other countries are so backward and illiterate, they don't create anything, okay? That's just a fact. Look it up in the books historically, okay? And here, I'll tell, okay, so here's Rodney Stark's own words. Enlightenment bozos of the 1700s like Voltaire, who mocked Christianity, did not realize that Christianity is the source of the modern scientific method, that almost all of significant scientific achievements of the Middle Ages were performed by European Christian men who were often ordained priests of the Catholic Church. 40 years ago, the most important and popular freshman course at the best American universities was Western Civilization. It provided the general history of the West and historical surveys of art, music, literature, philosophy, and science. But this course has long disappeared from most colleges on the grounds that Western civilization is but one of many civilizations, and it is ethnocentric and arrogant for us to study ours. It is widely claimed that to offer a course in Western civilization is to become an apologist for Western hegemony and oppression. Okay, and that's absolute BS, but that's true. That's what all the universities did. That's what happened when I was at Stanford. Okay, Rodney Stark continues. Thus, Stanford dropped its widely admired Western Civilization course just months after Jesse Jackson came on campus and led members of the Black Student Union in chants of, hey, hey, ho, ho, Western Civ has got to go. So Jesse Jackson, he's kind of just sort of an evil partner of the destruction of Western civilization. I don't think he even cares that much, but they pay him a lot of money to do this stuff. So racial hustling is big money. All right, and they destroyed Western Civ course at Stanford and at other universities. All right. Okay, Rodney Stark continues. More recently, the University of Texas has condemned Western civilization courses as being inherently right-wing, and Yale even returned a $20 million contribution rather than reinstate the course. But modernity is entirely a product of Western civilization. So what's really happening is the billionaire perverts don't want young people to know about Western civilization, because if they know about it, they'll easily recognize it's superior to all other civilization by a million miles. It's not even close. And they'll want to preserve it. But the billionaire perverts want to get rid of Western civilization because Western civilization prevents slavery. In order to get slavery and to reduce the number of the people by 95%, which is the goal, it's written on the Georgia Guidestones. Everybody knows this who's literate. they have to get rid of Christianity and they have to get rid of Western civilization. That's why there's like this bludgeoning force. Get rid of Christianity, get rid of Western civilization. Racism, racism, racism. Okay, all this nonsense is just it's just paid for nonsense in order to bring back slavery and population reduction. Okay, it's obvious. Okay, and Rodney Stark, if you actually read real history, you see it's obvious. Modernity is entirely a product of Western civilization. Almost nothing came from other cultures of significant technological achievement and also of cultural achievement. It's insignificant, the cultural achievement of other cultures. It's just a fact. Okay, the American Indian, they're living in teepees, they're illiterate, okay? What the hell technology did they create, okay? Please, let's be realistic. Okay, the reason why Europe dominated the world in science and technology was because it had Christianity. This gave it a worldview to study science and to promote freedom. Rodney Stark from How the West Was Won. And they said the same thing, the Indian guys said the same thing about India. Back before they brought the Christian missionaries from England, their culture, there was like virtually no science, okay? They had Maya, that life has no meaning and you can't ever figure anything out, and Hinduism is atheism, so there wasn't any motivation to achieve. You got a lot of high IQ people, but Christianity like activates this desire for learning and scholarship and science. All right, Rodney Stark continues. China, India, Egypt, Africa, South America, Caribbean, Middle America, and all have better climates for growing food. But modern civilization and modern science did not come from those places. The modern scientific method only arose in Christian Europe. Since the beginning of recorded history, slavery has been common throughout the world. Christianity led to the banning of slavery in Christian countries. Slavery still exists in most non-Christian countries. That's another reason why the billionaire perverts don't want you to study Christianity, because when you study it, you're like, holy crap, most of what's good in the world has come from this. That's a fact. That's an objective fact you can easily read about. Okay, he says, in 1485, Bayezid II, Sultan of the Ottoman Empire and Caliph of Islam, he outlawed the printing press. That ban remained in effect throughout the Muslim world for at least 3 centuries. So for 300 years, they banned the printing press. So that would be from about 1485 to getting close to 1800. How is a society going to progress intellectually, academically, if you don't have a printing press? It's going to be pretty difficult to compete with societies that have a printing press. Okay, you see that now. A lot of communist countries, they don't allow people free access to the internet. They'll give them some limited portal, but not free access. Okay, Rodney Stark continues. Islam holds that the universe is inherently irrational and that there is no cause and effect because everything that happens is as a direct result of Allah's will at a particular time. Anything is possible. Attempts at science then are not only foolish, but they're also blasphemous because they imply limits to Allah's power and authority. Therefore, Muslim scholars tended to study law rather than science. All right, so how are they going to compete? And that's why the Muslim world was behind the Western world in science and achievement. That's just a fact, all right? And it's not just the Muslim world. It's all the non-Western countries were behind the West in science and technological achievement. There's no comparison. And he says this phrase, the Dark Ages, is a myth. And it was put forth by the Enlightenment. People like Voltaire and Diderot and Edward Gibbons. They tried to say, oh, this Christian time of Catholic Church was backwards, but now we are the enlightened ones of reason. First of all those guys, Voltaire, Diderot, Gibbons, etc., they didn't do any science themselves. The real scientists were people like Isaac Newton, intensely devout Christians, okay? Like the 35 Jesuit priests that have craters on the moon named after them, okay? If you look up Catholic scholars and priests and Christian scholars and priests, you'll be amazed at how many of them there are. You'll be literally amazed. They are what science was for many hundreds of years, okay? And the universities in the United States, they used to be great when they were Christian. Now that they're atheists, they're all become a joke. Look at Harvard now. Endless scandals, lying, phony BS. You have phony scholarship, phony professors, phony classes. They just fired a Harvard biology professor because she said that there's only 2 sexes. She said that you can talk all you want about it. You can have 100 genders. There's only 2 sexes, male and female, okay? She got fired for saying that. All right. That's at Harvard, okay? When a baby's born, let's say an animal is born, you have a puppy, You say it's a boy or a girl. You don't say you don't ask its pronouns. Okay, give me a break. And this leftism stuff, it pretends to be high-minded and moral. It's not high-minded and moral. They castrate children, okay? They encourage children to commit suicide. That's what the MAID program is all about, okay? Children aren't ready to make big decisions like that, and it makes them infertile. Great. That's good for reducing the number of the you-know-what, the population. Okay, Rodney Stark continues. He said, European Dark Ages was a myth. Europe progressed rapidly during this time, and that's why it was so far ahead of other countries during the Renaissance. The golden era of Islamic science and learning was also a myth. Most of the sophisticated appearing academic work in Muslim countries, it was not done by Muslims, it was done by the dhimmi, the conquered people in those countries. The Arab science was mostly dhimmi science. Even today, Muslim societies are scientifically backward in comparison with the West. That's according to Rodney Stark, okay? And he's the guy who studied it backwards and forwards. He's got so many references in his book, it's not even funny. He's a meticulous scholar, this guy. I mean, here's one of his books. I'll just show you all these pages of references to all the stuff he says. He knows people are going to try to maybe challenge him. So he's got endless references backing up all the things that he's talking about. All right, let's continue with Rodney Stark. Rodney Stark in his books and videos has shown how the Catholic Church treated women much better than the Roman world did. Women in Rome wanted very much to become Christians. Ancient Rome itself did not value the sanctity of life. A Roman man could force his woman to let her baby die, the equivalent of an abortion in those days, if he did not want a daughter. In Christianity, all babies were precious. A Roman man could abandon his wife and leave her destitute with no alimony. Christianity emphasized trying to keep families together and the man's obligation to the woman and his family with her. In ancient Rome, there were no civil services. Before the Christians came along, the pagan system had no concept of helping the poor. The early Christians were paragons of virtue in comparison with the non-Christians. During infectious plagues sweeping through the community, almost everyone would make a run for it, try to get out of Dodge ASAP, but many Christians would stay behind to help the sick. Yeah, that's notorious. Tons of Christian saints were saints, and that was one thing they were real famous for. When there was a plague, they'd be in the middle of helping people. They wouldn't run. People saw how nice, how kind, how virtuous the Christians were, and this motivated others to want to be with them, to want to be like them, to want to become Christians. Read Quo Vadis. The Christians are all about bringing love and forgiveness into the world on a wide scale. That didn't exist in the world before them. It existed on an individual basis, but not on a wide scale. Being a Roman was all about power, strength, domination, okay? All right, Rodney Stark. Christianity is the reason that we have a modern scientific method. Okay, so that's it for Rodney Stark. I hope you found that helpful. I think you find his books very helpful. He's got YouTube videos. I'll try to link to one of his YouTube videos. You get a sense of hearing him talk.